Hello everybody. Going to do a quick recap of week 1 here. It's Monday night after the games, so feels like a good time to talk about everything while everything is fresh and take a look and see where we stand after week 1. So what we can do here is, let me switch the scenes. So just looking at the Dynasty League first. I think I'm always going to format this to start with any kind of trades that happened during the week. So the only trade that we had that happened during this last week was Isaac and Drew, where Drew got Debo and a third round pick from Isaac for Chris Olave. Initially, thoughts on this trade, overall I think it's pretty even. Debo's a little bit older, so from a dynasty perspective, more going to a contending team. When you're looking to acquire Debo, no offense, not sure if Drew's quite to the contending team just yet. He did have a decent score this week though, which we'll talk about here. But I think that you know with Olave, he may have been better off trading him for some future picks, some like a first round pick next year, maybe even a couple first round picks. It depends on who you're trading him to and who values him highly. So Debo did really well this week though, so maybe you are able to shop him around, sell high on him, and maybe get a little bit more than you would from Olave even. So you gotta kind of decide now if you're going to be contending or if you're going to be trying to rebuild. That's kind of the first step, especially this early in the season. Start trying to figure that out, and then by week 6, 7, you should probably know exactly what you'll be doing, and then at that time, make some decisions. But overall, trade pretty even. I didn't put it in a calculator, but just from a redraft perspective, pretty even. Chris Olave is a bit younger though, so from a dynasty perspective, Chris Olave could be a little more valuable as long as he's healthy, and as long as the Saints start getting their act together in the next year or two. So that's kind of the trade there. No, the trades, lots of acquirements. Notably this week, I did pick up Quentin Johnston, so going to reverse the curse on Jody, I believe, where I drop a player and he picks them up, and they turn into a great asset. I think Quentin Johnston, probably not every week he's going to have such a performance as he had this week, but I think that he could be a good solid number 2 on that Chargers offense. I think McConkey still is going to be the number 1, even though this week McConkey was not the number 1. But I think overall, Quentin Johnston will have a good WR2 year with some WR1 upside this week that he did finished as a WR1, and we can take a look at those rankings as well. And then some players on the block. I did put up Hollywood Brown and Jaden Reed. So if anyone's interested in getting some wide receiver depth, I'm happy to trade for that. Don't really need anything. Having a decent RB3 could be useful for me. So if anyone's got like an RB3 type caliber player they want to trade for a couple of receivers, could go that route. Also, I wouldn't mind putting Quentin Johnston on the trade block as well. I did put him on the trade block, but wouldn't mind trading him. So just throwing that out there to anyone that has an RB3 they want to potentially trade for some receivers. A couple of these guys are young. Hollywood Brown's not super young, but he's on a great team, so maybe asset to somebody. So looking at our weekly recap, just go down the list here. Me versus Isaac this week 1. To be honest, I thought Isaac had this game won until Josh Allen decided to pop off the last quarter of their game there and score me, I think, almost 20 points in one quarter. So thanks to Josh Allen, I was able to kind of pull this week out. Was on the edge of my seat for most of Sunday night because I wanted to see what would happen. I thought I'd already lost. I think Isaac got me first week, which would have, you know, put a damper on my goal of being undefeated this season. So we'll see what happens going forward. Hope to stay undefeated. There's a lot of good teams this year, so we'll see what happens. Overall, you know, Isaac did really well. A couple of his players balled out. A couple of his players didn't. It's kind of how it is in fantasy. He started tearing corn. Can't blame him there. Missed a lot of training camp and practice, so he's probably a bit rusty. First game back, I think he'll bounce back. Um, I always hope so for Isaac's sake. Um, Trading Devonta Smith, you never know what you're going to get with Devonta Smith. Um, I think he'll still be a good, solid wide receiver too, and he'll bounce back. Um, it's just one of those things. A.J. Brown also disappeared in that game. Philly did not really throw the ball very much. It was all on the ground. So luckily I had Saquon, which really didn't put up as many points as you'd think he would have. Being Saquon, only 16 points, so not really a good return on value. You can see Gibbs even had a low week. I feel like a lot of the top end talents, a lot of the first rounders didn't return much value this week. Some of them did, but a lot of them did not. Neighbors being on there, Russell Wilson is going to drag Neighbors down until they make the change to Jackson Dart. I think once they make that change, though, Neighbors pops back up, and hoping that happens sooner than later. It seems like, based on news, they're going to give Russell Wilson another go this week. So if he does poorly, which I hope he does, go ahead and get him out of there, get Jackson Dart in there, and get some more points for Neighbors, I hope. Buka, thank goodness I was able to get him in the Dynasty draft. He fell to me at that 7th pick or 8th pick. And I think he's going to be potentially the best wide receiver in the class. McMillan had a decent turnout, and so did Hunter, but I think Ibuka is going to be the best wide receiver of the class. He's in the best situation, I think, at least, overall. So we'll see what happens there. Unfortunate for our tight ends, both of them got hurt during the game. Kittle, I think, has more of an injury. He's going to miss probably 3 to 5 weeks with his injury. Bowers, they haven't reported anything on him yet, so hopefully he is day-to-day and comes back next week. I'm going to need him, because if not, I don't have another tight end. Because my other tight end, being Isaiah Likely, is not likely to play. So we'll see what happens. Nico did not perform well this week. The Houston O-line is really going to struggle. So hopefully they figure something out. The Rams do have a pretty good defense, so we'll see if it was more the Rams defense or if it's more of the Houston offensive line. I think it's going to be a bit of both there, so we'll see what happens. Now, I did trade Garrett Wilson to Isaac, and he popped off. He had a good day. Almost had 100 yards, got a touchdown. He outscored Saquon Barkley. So really, in the scheme of things, I think Isaac had more points come out of this trade this week, even though I got Saquon. He's got 2 good receivers, so we'll see what happens going forward there. Marvin Harrison did really good this week. I think that he'll continue to rise in the sophomore year. I'm hoping that he gets around 15 or more points every week, so hopefully this is a 4 for him. They did play the Saints, though. Not the greatest team. We'll see what happens on that part. And then, so overall, it was a close match. I don't know why Isaac had put Baltimore in as a defense. They were not one of the top defenses this week. There were some other options he probably could have got on the waiver wire. I would never play defense against Buffalo. I would never play defense against Baltimore either. So that's something that I think if he had done, I don't know if he would have won, but it would have been a bit closer. It might have been like 130 to 146. I was the highest scoring this week, luckily. So, So we'll take a look at the next match here. Stop talking about myself. I know you guys don't want to hear me just talk about myself the whole time. Alrighty. So Pirtle and Kelly. Uh, Pirtle's putting up a good week. Like I said last week, I thought he's a dark horse for this year. As long as McCaffrey stays healthy and Mahomes does what he did, I think he's gonna have a decent year. Um, Kelly's no pushover. He's won the league a few times, so he's got a solid team as well. He had a few players disappear with AJ Brown, um, Evan Ingram, but he's tight end, so you never know on tight ends. Mike Evans, unfortunately for him, Abuka is now on the Bucks and is going to be maybe their top receiving option now. We'll see what happens. Mike Evans is probably drawing the better coverage right now, so maybe that opens up Abuka, which is good for me. Um, Back to talking to myself about myself. I'm sorry, guys. Um, and Kelly said Ken Walker, he's going to have maybe a problem with him. All the analysts are just talking about Charbonnet maybe taking over, more of a 50-50 split. Um, Charbonnet had a little bit better metrics, so Kelly may need to have a backup plan there. On his bench, he doesn't have too many. He's got Keon Coleman, which is just great. Rashee Rice, I think, will come back and be great once he's back. Um, but I don't think his bench is like super deep. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm just not noticing as well. This doesn't show the taxi squads. So apologies for that. But I can't do anything about that. Pirtle had Zay Flowers on the bench and DeAndre Hopkins. I guess he really likes the Ravens. But Zay Flowers is popping off. Oh, he also has Bateman on the bench. So he's got all the Ravens. I think that Zay Flowers should be every week starter for him. Let's see who he started over that. Let's see here. He flexed in Kelsey. Turned out to be fine actually. Kelsey and Laporta both had decent weeks for tight end. Chase Brown, no, he did okay. Not anywhere near what he probably could have done, but Cincinnati typically has a slow start to the year. I think they set a record for the lowest yards in a second half. It was like under 10 yards or something like that, and still won. So a really cherry-picked record, but still pretty crazy. And going forward, I don't know how Pirtle plays Tyreek Hill until the Dolphins prove otherwise. I didn't watch the game, so unless Indy just has a super defense, I don't know what they're going to do in the future. Indy's probably a middle of the road defense, from my understanding, and the Dolphins looked like probably one of the worst offenses in the league, and defenses probably. They did not do good. So not sure if Pirtle's going to be able to continue starting Tyreek Hill. Nonetheless, he still won, beat out Kelly by about 14 points. So a decent week overall. Neither team really made any mistakes, quote unquote. And everything's always hindsight, but we learned a lot from week one. So we'll see what happens in week two. Next we got Brent and Seegers here. Seegers won. I think that they both had the lowest scoring overall probably if you add up the scores, but Seegers squeaked out a win there against Brent. Brent had an unfortunate start of Russell Wilson. You never know if you can get with him. He'll still go to the Hall of Fame, but I think his career is about done. And then looking at the rest of Brent's team, James Conner did okay. A lot of people are thinking that he's going to start losing some work here to what's his face? I can't think of his name. Hang on, it tells me here. Trey Benson. So we'll see what happens there. So Brent may want to try to handcuff James Conner with Trey Benson sooner than later. I'm not sure what team he's on. Let's see what team Trey Benson is on. Looks like Jody's got him, of course. So just be careful trading with Jody, if you know what I mean. but yeah, I think Trey Benson may start eating into James Conner this year a bit more. James Conner's just getting a bit older. So, however, James Conner, I feel like you can never count him out. So, he's still a great running back. Tony Pollard, Tennessee's just going to have some growing pains here as they're rebuilding. And Denver was a top defense, so you can't blame anything on that. Tony Pollard was just in a tough matchup, and he didn't get any of the big plays that you'd want him to get. He also looks like he hit a fumble, so that also hurts a bit. Good old Cooper Kupp, he's fell down a bit. I think he's gonna be hard to start going forward. The same with Tyler Lockett. I don't think we can start them going forward. You got Pittman, and same way with Jerome Ford. I'm not sure you can start him going forward. So we'll see what happens there. Got my kicker Tyler Whoop, who I was going to take in the draft, but you took him first. A lot of people were baffled by that, but I like that pick, by the way, Brent, if you're listening. I think that was a good pick. I was going to take him in the third round as well, but that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, so going forward, I mean, Brent does have Aaron Rodgers, which looked like he was doing well. Now, it was against the Jets. Jets actually have a pretty decent defense typically. So, if he puts Aaron Rodgers in here, that gets them about tied, actually, with Seegers there. Seegers still pulled out by a couple points, but, just going forward, I think if he plays Aaron Rodgers, that could, raise his ceiling a bit. Let's see here. And then, on his bench, he's just got a lot of other potential players he could play, but, he's going to have some hard decisions going forward there. And then on Seeger's team here, Pacheco is going to be hard to keep playing, I think, each week. We'll see what happens there. It just looks like they're throwing the ball more this year. He carried the ball 5 times, had 3 targets. Not really what you want to see from a running back, especially on a team that ran the ball a bit more in the last few years. CeeDee Lamb just went against a harder defense. Also hit a lot of drops. I think he would have had like 20 more points or so if he would have caught the other catches there, a couple other catches on the long balls. So he dropped a lot of important passes for Dallas there. I've got CD in another league, so feel your pain there, my friend. DK, I think, is going to be fine. Aaron Rodgers looked good, so I think he'll bounce back. He's got only 7 targets. I think overall they spread the ball out. All the receivers had about 7 targets. Just none of the touchdowns. All 4 touchdowns went to different receiving options. So I think DK Metcalf will have a good year. With that being said, Mark Andrews, I don't even know what to do with him. He's going to be a boom or bust every week, I think. He only had 1 target, and I think that was at the end of the game. So Sutton did great. Happy to see that. That was unfortunate there with what happened, so can't blame Seegers on that one. Swift, I think, is going to be great this year. 17 carries and 5 targets. That's what you want to see from your running back. Only got you 8 points, but the usage is up, so I think he's going to be great this year. R.J. Harvey had 6 carries for 70 yards. I think that he's a rookie, but hopefully you didn't play him for a reason, but hopefully he does better. ETN, he is going to be a hot commodity. They just traded Tank Bigsby away to Philadelphia. So ETN is going to be, I think, a top running back this year now. I don't know how you sit him going forward. I think you have to play him every week going forward. Anything else I want to say about your team? Fairbarn on the bench and Chicago on the bench, but I don't think that would have made too much of it. You won anyways, but those are some players that you had on the bench that could have went either way. So, all right, 2 more on this one here. So looking at Bryce and Jody, uh, battle of the Titans here. Both of them typically have very good teams. Um, you know, Bryce had one of the highest scores this week, maybe the second highest this week. Yeah, Bryce had the second highest behind me this week. And Jody had the second lowest, just ahead of Brent this week. His team really just fell apart. Unfortunately, he has two Bengals on his starting lineup, and they did not do good. So risk reward there, having that many Bengals, and they also see Joe Burrow. So having that stack can pay off sometimes, but if the team has a bad game, everyone has a bad game, and that's going to hurt you. But Jody knows what he's doing. He knows the risk there. He's won 3 times, as you can see his name. So good job, Jody. And just overall, his team is great. It just didn't have a good week. There's not much you can say about that. Looking at Bryce's team, they all did great. Hansing had good usage. I think he's still going to be a stud this year. Even though he didn't get a lot of points, I think he'll still be great. Puka is a crazy man. When you traded for him last year or 2 years ago, whenever that happened, that ended up being a good trade. Let's take a look at that right quick. Let's see here. If I go to history, yeah, that was in 2023. And you traded Joe Mixon, which actually had a couple good years. I think he's done though. And then also Tua, which understandable. He was one of the top quarterbacks at that time, coming off a good year. So, but you got Nakua out of it. It took the risk, got the reward. So, Amon-Ra didn't do good for you, but I think he'll be fine going forward. The Joku, that's one that's hard. Fanon, I think, is going to split time with him now. He took a lot of the targets, so the Joku is going to be boom or bust, just like most tight ends. You're not going to be able to control that. Brian Thomas, I think he'll be fine. He got 7 targets, so it's not terrible, but you'd like to see maybe more than that, being kind of the alpha receiver type. So maybe we'll go forward and throw him more. They were ahead all the whole game though against Carolina, so they didn't really have to throw the ball, so that could be a game script issue. Drake London did not perform as well, I think, as he could have. Tampa Bay does have a pretty good defense, and he had 15 targets, so I think he's going to be fine going forward as well. Chuba was great. He's kind of the player you don't want to play, but he always is going to produce. So, and then somehow Indiana found themselves facing Miami, which is, I think, a college team now, not even a football NFL team. So they had a good defensive outing. Let's look at the benches here. On both benches, I mean, there's some players you can certainly sub in. Britton Strange is going to be a decent tight end, I think, this year. JSN, I'm surprised you actually benched him. How did you bench him for? Goodness, Drake London, Darren Thomas. You know what I'm saying? Okay, well, I guess that makes sense. I guess you could have traded out Hampton, but even then, I can understand playing him for the upside, especially playing against a team like Jody, which normally puts up a lot of points. So you got lucky playing him on a low week there. So that's crazy that you're going to have those kind of decisions each week, maybe. Caleb Johnson did not pan out so far. So if some injuries happen, they might work him in, but he's not pan out, I don't think. And we'll see what Tank Bixby does. You got him on your team, so we'll see what he does long term. And then lastly, looking at Drew and Rance. Close game. I think this is the closest game this week. Of course, Sleeper tomorrow is going to make all the things there. Yeah, that's the closest game this week. So, hats off to both of you all putting up decent scores. Rance takes this one barely, about 4 points. So, it's one of those things that you did your best this week, and maybe next week you'll do better. So just looking at the teams right quick, trying to speed this up as it's getting close to a little over midnight now, and I'm going to be tired and ramble a bit, so I do apologize. Um, just looking at the teams right quick, both quarterbacks did great. The running backs all did pretty good. Henderson, um, wish to get a little more usage maybe, but he's a rookie, so that's how it goes sometimes. And then you got Ted McMillan as well. He had the targets, just didn't come down with any touchdowns. If he had a touchdown, changes this week. I don't know if you can play Waddle going forward, just until Miami figures that out. So I understand you probably want to play him. He's a big name, but I don't know if you can. Starting Gesicki in your tight end spot or your flex spot, that's risky. I guess if you thought that the Bengals are going to have a really good week against the Browns, let's say you could have potentially played. Just not even looking at the scores. Yeah, you don't have a ton of good flex options there. So I can understand why you played him then. So I got some of those players on the trade block. I'm happy to trade you some good flex options there. But you still pulled out the W. You pulled out the win. Drew's team, I think, overall did pretty average. Pickens was a little let down, maybe. I don't know. He only got 4 targets, so against a good defense, we'll see. Give him a couple 3 weeks. He's gonna be more of the deep ball threat guy, but he averaged 10 yards a catch, so it's not really very deep. And then let's see here. I think Jordan Mason's gonna be great this year. I called that out. I think he's gonna really share time with Aaron Jones in that backfield, so I think he's gonna be good. Really don't know if you can start Adam Thielen, even if you caught the ball that he dropped, which he should have probably held on to, but you get that hard. Sometimes I'm sure it's hard to do. So maybe see what we have here for a good flex option. Let's see here. I guess Stevenson's the only one I can see that you might want to play. You got, probably Stevenson's your best option there if you want to trade him out ever. But that's the week in Dynasty here. Do a quick prediction for next week, and then I'm gonna run through the redraft ones a bit quicker. So we'll just kind of highlight the scores there and maybe a couple things on each team instead of going through each lineup like I did on the Dynasty. So looking at week 2. Okay, here's our projections for week 2, and this is not changing any kind of lineup. So this is our current lineups, which works out because there's no bye weeks unless someone has injury. I don't think it's taking into account those injuries for week 2 yet. So, of course, I'm predicting I'm going to win against Pirtle this week. Pirtle's going to be a tough matchup, though, especially McCaffrey being healthy. Kittle's going to be out. So McCaffrey may just drop 40 or 50 points on me this week. So I'm going to need him not to do that until next week. We'll see what happens, though. So I think I'll take predictions here for this week. Me on this side, Isaac and Seegers. I got to go with Isaac just because he almost beat me. I think overall, they both have really good teams. Either of them could win. I think if, especially with ETN being on Seeger's bench for a replacement to Worthy, I think that makes a big difference. But, just looking at both teams, either one could win. Toss up. I'll give it. Oh goodness, I don't know. It'd be close. He doesn't have Kittle, which is a big big deal there. I don't think he has a backup tight end either, so he can get some off the waivers and hope. I actually might give this nod to Seegers this week because I think he's got more of the upside players. Um, yeah, I think he's got some more upside players. So I think I might nod Seegers this week. All right, let's see here. Looking at Kelly and Bryce. Oh, this looks like it's projected to be a high-scoring game, 150 to 141. This is one that's going to be, a big toss-up as well. Depends on what players come out to play. Let's see here. Let's see if I see anything that stands out that I think could help. Wow. Bryce has a good matchup with Tampa Bay playing against Houston, which did not show out very well against the Rams. I think Tampa Bay and the Rams are a very similar team makeup overall. So, I think give that nod to Bryce for this week. I don't know how Kelly plays Nick Chubb going forward. Let's see who he has on his bench that he could play. Is it Coleman? If he actually ends up being the WR1 for Buffalo and he becomes their main guy, I think that he could say worthy starter every week. So maybe trade Coleman out for Chubb, but I still think that overall Bryce's team is going to be built better for this week, just based on matchups and Kelly's team though. It's one of those teams that could explode for 200 points. So I'm going to say Bryce this week. Looking at Brent and Rance for this coming week. Let's see here. Who do I think? Yeah, I think it'll be closer than what you may think, but I think Rance pulls this one out just slightly. Just for the fact that I think he's got a better tight end, which gives him a good advantage. And he's got Bijan, and I think a better QB. Now, if Rodgers balls out against the Seahawks, maybe that is on par with what Jordan Love can do. Jordan Love plays Thursday night, so typically Thursday night games are a bit lower scoring. But yeah, overall, I think I'm going to lean towards Rance on this one. And then looking at Drew and Jody, I think that on this one, Jody's a 3x chat for a reason. His team is certainly built for the upside. He'll probably make some tweaks this week, maybe make some trades. But overall, I think his team is going to be a favorite almost every week. Just he's got Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, and he also has good running backs, so he's set, I think. All right, let's look at the redraft right quick. Again, I'm just going to kind of run through these, not try to make this an hour-long thing like I did the last one, but I have a feeling it's probably going to end up being close to an hour. We're at 33 minutes currently. All right, so looking at our league this week, my team just I feel like I have this every year where I start out bad in redraft and then I ramp up. So hopefully that happens this year. Jamar Chase pooped. Everybody on my team pooped, but Aaron Jones actually did decent. He's the only one with green here. But yeah, all my team pooped. And what's bad is Ryan's team also did not do well. Just my team did less well. If I would have had a typical performance from Jamar Chase or someone. I took the risk playing McLaurin this week there. My bench though, look at all this green. I got so much green on my bench. I got five that overscored their projection. So I think I'll be fine going forward. Just gonna have some tough decisions on my bench, but yeah, Seegers got me this week there, so good start for him. Looking at Isaac and Rance there. Rance blew Isaac out. He had Josh Allen and Bijan. Marvin Harrison did great for him. Javonte Williams, which is crazy, but he did great this week as well. I think anyone expected Javonte Williams to be one of the top running backs this week, but he was. So, fantasy football for you. But yeah. Rams blew Isaac out of the water there this week. Of course, Bryce plays Jody in this league as well. I love when that happens when you play the same team in both leagues each week. So Bryce went 2-0 against Jody this week. Jody's team did fine, about league average, I would say. Just Bryce's team performed better this week. And Bryce has a good team. I know he probably didn't remember half of his picks, but he picked pretty well. And his bench isn't terrible, so he's got a few players: Jordan Mason, Keenan Allen, Tyler Warren on his bench that I think could play at any point. Jody's playing the wait and see on Christian Kirk when he comes back, so we'll see when he comes back. I think he could be okay. We'll see. Maybe that's what the Texans need, is another receiver to help them win games. Let's see here. So Jody's got Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. I think he drafted them both just to try to do some trades with them. So if anyone's looking for a good QB, top end QB, he's got two of them. Just when you trade, make sure you run through a calculator or offer your players to other people, which I'm always happy to entertain any offer as well, especially in redraft. So looking at the next matchup here was Kelly and Drew. Drew's our reigning champ from last year, and he won this week here. Justin Fields came out of the gate strong. Justin Fields, when he's on, he's on. When he's off, he's off. So he had an on week this week against Pittsburgh, which is actually a good defense. So maybe Justin Fields is going to be this year's kind of under the radar QB. I feel like we have one every year. Jaden Daniels last year, for example. So I think Justin Fields could be that person this year. And if so, Drew might just end up winning this again this year. I do like his team a lot. Christian McCaffrey stays healthy. Could be great. So overall, I think Drew has a solid team. He's got some decent players on his bench as well. So I think he'll be the team to watch out for this year. And then looking, the last thing here is Brent and Pirtle. Pirtle has defeated Brent by about 20 points, almost 20 points there. And let's take a look here. Pirtle's got Murray, did decent against a bad defense, even when he was sick. Bad team. But still, Daniels, they end up being about the same. It's funny. Gibbs just did not perform this week, unfortunately. Derrick Henry did, of course. Chase Brown didn't do as well as he could have. George Kittle got hurt. Devontae Adams, I don't know what he got the targets, so he got 8 targets. So we'll see what happens going forward. Pirtle somehow won, and still he started 2 Bengals that did not do anything. So actually, no, he started 1 Bengal. The other one here's on Chase Brown. That's what I was seeing a while ago. That's on the other side here with Brent. But yeah, Pirtle pulled it out. So congrats to Pirtle. I think both these teams are great. So we'll see what happens next week. I'll go ahead and just do a quick preview for next week. You got me and Rants. Looks like it's going to be a close game right there, just based on projections. I might go through and look at all the teams. Same way with Isaac and Seegers. Look at that, 117 to 117, 0.78, 0.76. That's going to be a close one. Lots of good matchups this week. Looks like not as close a matchup with Bryce and Kelly, but you never know what will happen there. But that looks like Bryce is projected to blow Kelly out, so we'll see what happens there. Very close matchup with Pirtle and Jody. And then looks like Brent is projected to blow out Drew this week. But Drew, though, was the highest, one of the highest. No, he was not. He lost this week, didn't he? What did he end up with? He ended up with 118. Is he? No, he wasn't the highest. He's the third highest. But yeah, so we'll see what happens there. All right. Well, I think I will go ahead and stop the recording now and upload this. Um, but good little recap of what happened this week in the Dynasty and the redraft. Maybe I won't do this next time on a Monday night because I'm pretty tired. So probably didn't make much sense on some parts here, but it could be a little boring. Also, just listening to me talk. I'm rambling now. So, but yeah, I'm gonna do this again next week. I'll probably do it on Tuesday next week after work. That way, I'm not as tired. But good luck to everyone next week, and let's see some trades in both leagues this week. I want to see what we can do to shake things up and stay make this fun. All right.